Welcome to M&A Unpacked, the weekly show where we bring on experts in MSP M&A, case studies from those who have gone through or going through the process, and top M&A and business minds to help you maximize the value of your MSP, whether you're buying, selling, or just trying to improve your business. Make sure to subscribe to the Kaseya YouTube channel so you know when new episodes drop, and you can even save that M&A Unpacked playlist for easy access. I am joined today by Willis Cantey, CEO of Cantey Tech Consulting. Will, thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here, Mike. Thanks for having me.
So, you've been doing this for a long time. You started your business 17 years ago, and you brought on PE 3 years ago, private equity 3 years ago. So, tell us, first of all, tell me about your company. Where are you in the world, and what do you guys do?
Great. So we're in Charleston, South Carolina. We've been an MSP here and have grown. We now provide support to clients in 16 different states, but most of our clients originally were here in the Charleston area, and we've been able to grow. We've done 3 acquisitions. We're close on a 4th. And as you mentioned, we brought on private equity about 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago in 1 week officially.
Wow. Congratulations. And so give me the history here. Let's kind of rewind back when you were starting out. I'd love to hear your story. How did you start? And kind of bring us up to speed to the point where you getting ready to start thinking about PE.
Sure. So I worked in tech companies, large and small, but was never happier than when I was at a small company. I worked at a startup in New York in the .com days, but came back, worked at a software company, and found out there was a small IT support company for sale. It was losing money every month. In retrospect, it would have been a lot cheaper starting from scratch, but it did come with 2 great people, one of whom stayed with us for 8 years. And we were able to grow it from there. It's really been an opportunity to help a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, law firms, medical practices, and we've grown with the business. Security has become a bigger piece of our puzzle as we've grown, but we're still fundamentally a managed services provider. About 4 years ago, the team said, look, can we acquire other companies? How can we grow this? And we'd had a good record of organic growth. We've been on the Inc. 5000 we've been on it 9 years. And so we're really proud of that, but we also thought that we could grow doing some acquisitions, bringing on better talent, and expanding into different geographies. What we found is how much money people were paying for things. It would have involved taking on a lot of debt and putting all the cash that I had saved back into it. And we said, maybe this is better with a financial partner. We looked at 11 different groups, which is probably overkill. I did a deep dive. I did a lot of research because I wanted to find the right partner, and I found it. They were really maybe the second one that we talked to. I should have saved myself a lot of time and effort, but it's been a good opportunity to partner with a like-minded group and LNC partners.
And how did you prepare to talk to a PE firm? How does you're looking at it, you're not selling necessarily. You're going out and you're acquiring a financial partner. So that's you gotta really probably have your stuff together, right? Like how do you prepare for that?
Yeah. So I mean, you're sort of selling, but then you're sticking around, right?
Yeah.
And when you're as part of a platform, they're investing in you because they want you to go out there and run it and grow it, and they'll help you, but they want you to go do it. So you learn the questions pretty quickly. They're not complicated. Our books were fairly straightforward. We didn't run a lot of crazy expenses through the business. And if there were things that I ran through the business that I didn't think would be part of it going forward, I needed to be able to explain those things, to detail them and explain it. So if we had given a lot to a certain nonprofit or charity for some reason that year, and we weren't planning on doing that same thing going forward, I just needed to be able to explain that. We also needed to be able to talk to our business, which most MSP owners can already do. You know this business. Many of them have been doing it a lot longer than 17 years, and they can tell you the story behind every customer and every employee. So we had our financials in a row, And there's all sorts of great groups. It happens through CASE, it happens through other groups where they'll give you some background about what you need to do. There's a lot of great information online. And of course, you can go to a group that helps with valuations, or a investment bank that might help you with preparing for a sale. But in some cases, you just need to have your ducks in a row and be able to answer the basic questions. And if you can do that, then a lot of these investors want to talk to you. Some of them have different thresholds about what they're looking to have you be able to do. Is your management team ready to be a platform? Do you have the infrastructure in place, not just technical infrastructure, but the systems in place to be able to grow and take on integrations or take on other MSPs? And that's a challenge for anybody the first time. I still feel guilty about the first group that went through an acquisition with us. We learned a lot of lessons during those next 6 or 12 months, but it's better now.
And as your, let me back up. Did you acquire any business before you brought in PE or?
We did one, Mike, but I don't want to overplay our hand. That was more of a small opportunity that was good for us, but it was almost that we were acquiring a client list. That's not what we're going after. We're looking to bring on companies with great people and with great systems in place and with great clients, not just a basket of clients of somebody who's sort of getting out of the market. We'd still do that. We would do that again, but that's not what's going to drive us forward.
And how is it working with LNC, with the PE company? Now, sometimes, PE does scare some folks. So being going into a platform, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, a lot of times it doesn't work out for folks that bring in with PE. It doesn't mean there's not a successful financial outcome and all that. It means people aren't really happy with, and I'm friends with some of these folks, but they're not really happy with who they partner with. And I think that's a frustrating way to end a great career. You can still make a lot of money doing it. It can be great and all those things, but it's important about who you work with, right? We always used to joke around is that if I don't like the people I work with every day, it's my fault. I hired them. It's the same way with a business partner, like a private equity firm. If you don't like it, maybe they misrepresented themselves or something like that, but I put a lot of time into finding the right partner. And I'll be honest with you, I got lucky. They're flexible, they're careful. They've been supportive in good times and bad. And we've been with them for 3 years. Not every time has been a good time, right? We lost a large client. We had a legal issue, but we worked through all those things together. And never at one point did they say, hey, we're thinking about making some changes in here or anything like that. That wasn't the nature of it. When I looked at it, also learned some things to watch out for. If one of your first conversations is, what are some things that you think you could cut, right? What are some expenses you think you could reduce? Unless you've got a lot of fat in your business, and I don't think a lot of MSPs do, that can lead down a tough road, especially if you reduce the number of people that you have on your team. That reduces your capabilities, your ability to help your clients. So watch out for things like that. If they were talking about different classes of shares, so if you want to keep equity in the business, you want to have the same type of shares that the other people do, that the investors have. And that's what I have. That's what we do. It's the legal documents, which are always going to be intimidating, and you should always have a good attorney looking at it. But if the attorney says, this looks weird, if they don't look like neutral, fair documents on most terms, then that's another concern. So yes, there are some things about private equity that don't go well. Also, it's worth asking, what's the relationship going to be like going forward? And I talk with groups that are folks we're talking to from an acquisition standpoint. I said, look, we don't want to just focus on what the deal looks like, which is clearly important. We want to talk about, if you're planning on sticking around, what is it you'd like to do going forward? And if you don't want to stick around, that's okay, but let's talk about it and plan for it. I would prefer for people to stick around because they clearly built something great, something I'm willing to offer a lot for. But I want to talk with them about, what is it that you like doing? What is it you don't like doing? And sometimes, Mike, I mean, I talked to a guy one time and he just wanted to do podcasts. That's really what he wanted to do. And that's okay. But that's not something that we needed. You've got a good podcast, Mike. You're better at doing this than most people. So I don't know if we need more of those on one level. And two, Cantey Tech doesn't need its own. And I don't know what we talk about every week. Right. So I really believe you can find the right partner, but you've got to ask. This is both between Cantey Tech and the private equity and between people that we're talking to in Cantey Tech. You've got to have those conversations up front. And I would also encourage people to ask for references. Right? It's easy for me to tell you one thing, but it's really important for you to talk to other people that I've worked with to find out what's it like working with Cantey Tech. And I've been a reference for L&C twice. Those people can't get me off the phone because I gush about how well it's working. Could that change one day? Maybe. But at one point, L&C will move on. We're in year 3. So at one point down the road, they may move on. I don't want them to move on. I like they have a fund lifetime, so they could do this, and maybe they'll put us in part of their second fund, but it's that good of a relationship. I feel like with L&C, we could talk to a potential seller and in the call, and I could call them up and say, you guys are going to say A, B, and C. And they're going to say, Willis, I bet you'll say A, B, C, and D, or tell us we're wrong on number B, right? Or letter B. So long answer to a short question. Sorry, Mike.
That's a great answer. Very interesting. Can they just go and sell you like that? I guess that's the joke here, right? When a private equity company buys you, right? They're going to want to make a return on their investment. That may mean someday selling you. Can they just do that without you?
I think technically they could. As majority owner, they probably have the rights to do a lot of things. But I'll tell you, majority owner or minority owner, they just feel like a partner. And so I've never gotten that weight, the sharp elbows, or we're going to do this. And two, this is something that we go to market together when the time is right. It would be premature right now to do that. From a financial standpoint, it's way too early, right? The returns aren't there yet. They're good returns, but the returns aren't there yet. They will continue to grow as we move forward. And secondly, in that process, I need to be the biggest cheerleader talking about the business. So I take that role. I don't just hand that off to them. Now, they may be very involved in a lot of the details, and they have more experience in this than I do. So I lean on them and rely on them a lot. But it is not just them or just me. It's a team. So I don't worry about that.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to go back to talking about how you chose the PE company. I know you talked to 11 different companies. Can you go into a little more detail on I mean, that's a lot of work, right? Talking to 11 different companies.
And some of it was, some of them were just one conversation, right? Because I knew that I'd do this, but that I might need those other relationships down the road. You never know. They may be interested at the second turn in Cantey Tech, or they may have someone that is not a fit for the platform they end up supporting, but might be a fit for us for some other reason. Or, and this happens almost every time, you might learn something, right? There are people that have real expertise. The more conversations you have, the more podcasts you listen to, the more you learn. I've done a good bit of valuing these companies, but I went to a valuation seminar 2 weeks ago. It was great. I learned something new and got to network with some folks out there. So it was positive on all those fronts. And so it's always an opportunity to learn more, to make good connections. I encourage people to have conversations. Once you've got the right partner, though, once it feels right, you go for it. And it does. I didn't waste people's time after I made the decision to go with L&C.
What is it now? Let's talk about you. Now, we've talked a bit about the private equity. What's it like being acquired by Cantey?
Great. So we're looking for a specific set of attributes in the groups that we partner with. We're looking in the Southeast. We're looking for midsize and larger. We're looking for folks that have good client and employee retention. If they have a system like we use EOS, if they have a system like that, we want to understand it and know about it. If they're great at sales, if organic growth is good, that's something we want to encourage. And we've had good organic growth. So we want to continue that. We want to bring on folks that can do that with us. And maybe they know something better than we do. You know, we acquired a company in Fort Lauderdale. Their CEO is really great at marketing. He's better at it than we are. I don't care who's bigger. I don't care who owns what percentage of what. He's running our marketing. It's great. We brought on other groups that have other skills they can bring to the table. That's how you get there with 1 + 1 = 3. That's how you get better, is you bring on people who are better. You can take some of the things that they're doing that they don't like doing and they don't do as well, and you put them where they're best put to work. And so we think that's been a good process. We do believe in a full integration. We're not just a bunch of different groups everybody doing their own thing. It does have a common reporting structure. We do want to keep the people, but sometimes there might be some consolidation around the back end, around accounting or systems or some of those types of things. But I don't believe in letting a lot of people go, because how are you going to help the clients? We also try to keep the support local, which clients can. We do not have a service desk blob that they're supporting 500 clients and a client calls in and that poor person answering the call, they may never talk to that client again, right? Or they may never get good at helping that client. So we keep it specialized, and if we still provide some support remotely, right? Or some support from our office, maybe it's the security team or the project team, because everybody needs help with projects or project management or help with onboarding. These things take a lot of hours, but that have a good bit of a remote component to them. We can help with that. But the face that these clients are seeing, or the closest relationships they have, are still the same ones they had before we were involved. And I think that gives us a big edge in keeping these clients.
It's awesome. How do you guys do, like, how are you doing M&A differently? Like, what are some attributes that you guys do different than some of the other folks out there?
Well, we spend a lot of time talking about culture and fit before we start talking about the numbers, because it's easy to get caught up with that shiny object, right? So-and-so's got $1 million in EBITDA. Isn't that great? What will we do for that? Oh man, this is great. Start throwing around money before you start thinking about what is this going to be like after? And we're also trying to do this carefully. We've been doing this for 3 years. We've done 3. We've got 4, one that's close, right? Would I like to do more than that? Yes. Do I wish it were 10? No, do not. I think it can be really hard to manage, no matter how many times you've done it, no matter how good you are at it. It can just be really hard to carefully integrate them well. And so I think we're taking a different approach. We're also trying to do this in the Southeast. So our market is the DC area down to Florida, through the Southeast and Texas. You have to keep that separate. Texas is not the Southeast. Texas is not the Southwest. It's just Texas. I get it. But we're trying to do that not just so that we can all have the same accent. That's not it. Or some cultural connection. It's also, we think that a geographically connected MSP platform is easier to integrate and will generate more value in the end. So we do travel around to different ones. I still believe in a handshake and meeting people face to face, but you can't do that all the time, and it's certainly not scalable all the time. But we do try to stay connected. We bring in our managers here to Charleston for meetings where we can prepare, but we go there for the different holiday parties and things like that to keep that intact. Those are some of the things, in addition to, I would prefer for leaders to stick around. And other groups don't really care. And I recognize if somebody wants to retire, we've had that happen. Somebody wanted to retire and they told me that from the beginning, so we just planned on it. But I appreciate the expertise that people bring to the table. And I think we can find the right place for them in the organization going forward if they're flexible and willing to work with us on it. So most of them are.
What's your advice? We talked a little bit about this the other day, and I like to explore this with you. When is the right time to sell?
Yeah. So there's a lot of literature about this. Here are the 30 things you need to have lined up to get the most value for your business. There is no business that has all of those 30 things firing on all cylinders and ready to go. It will never happen. So what you have to say is, first, is the timing right for me? Right? Is the timing right for me? Do I think that I've built this business up to a good place? Do I want to do other things? Do I want to be a part of a bigger group? Right? Does all this make sense for me as a business owner? And if it does, then the next step is, well, what am I looking for in a partner? And write it down on a piece of paper, 4 or 5 things, right? And sometimes it's flexibility. We have someone we're talking to, they still want to be involved, but less, right? They have charitable things they do. They want to play golf. They want to do something. So you write those down and see if that's okay. Maybe you're a contractor and you do 20 hours a week and that's what you want to do. Okay. Well, we can come up with a scenario for that that's got flexibility in there. So think about what you want to do. And then 2, as you look at it, your books need to be set up in a way that can be easily explained. So if you are running a lot of expenses through it, maybe it's time to throttle back on some of those. When you go to sell, typically you're looking at your financials and you're saying, well, they're doing this, but I only pay myself $50,000 a year, right? And I know as somebody who's acquiring a business like that you're bringing $150,000 a year worth of value. So that actually comes out of your profitability when we look at it, because I can't hire somebody to do what you're doing as CEO of this business for $50,000 a year. Or we have other scenarios where people say, well, I'm going to retire, but I pay myself $150,000 a year. So you can take that out of the equation. And I get that, I understand it, but I'm pretty sure you're doing something, right? So can we just absorb that at no cost and it take no time? Maybe you aren't doing anything and maybe we should take it all out. But you might be managing people, you might be involved in sales, you might be representing the company in some way. So just be, as you look at the add backs, these are costs that an acquirer would not occur going forward, and it would not have any impact on the business. So don't say, I'm going to take a look at my numbers and we spend $50,000 a year on marketing. You don't have to do that. Well, you've grown. That marketing was successful for something. So don't, just be realistic with your add backs as you prepare those and think about those in time to sell. Next, we've had businesses that, don't hold me to these numbers of people, but let's say they were doing $5 million worth of business and they had 25 people, and now they're doing $6.5 million and they still have 25 people. And it's not hardware sales, right? It's work. Well, that means to me 1 or 2 things. Either you had too many people then and your utilization was really low, or you have too few people now. And the first thing we need to do is hire some people, because eventually that will hurt client service and it will definitely hurt employee morale. So I just think you run your business like you're not going to sell it, right? You continue to run your business carefully, but you don't have a lot of things in there that cloud up what is a clean business. As an acquirer, when I see side stories and explanations for every expense item and everything, it makes me think, golly, what questions am I not asking? It can be exhausting. And when there's not clarity, it can have a negative impact on your valuation. Another thing I would do, and Mike, I'll stop talking, but another thing I would do is take the time now to convert those time and material clients, if they're still out there, into managed services clients. Take the time now to train your clients that once a year you will raise rates. It doesn't have to be crazy, but if you're not raising your rates once a year, your team is expecting to get paid more once a year due to inflation and everything else. You need to be ready, right? Otherwise, you will have margin compression because your costs are going up and your revenue is not. So I think that we have I think that when I have this conversation with potential sellers, they get it. They think it's reasonable. It just adds a lot more time to the process.
Well, let's talk about who your dream target or your dream prospect for an acquisition. What do they look like?
So I'll have a realistic target. So we really need mid-size MSPs, not because the smaller ones are not of value, but because the cost to do a deal is a lot of money. The cost to due diligence is a lot of money. So it has to be worth this. And if you're too small, then we have to sort of offset our offer with the cost to do the deal. You end up not getting the right value for your business. But by mid-size, I mean about 3 million in revenue. We'd like to see double-digit growth, double-digit net margins, over 60% managed services recurring revenue. We mentioned the regions where we're looking to do it. We want good employee retention, good client retention. And client retention has been a tricky number these last 4 years. Many MSPs will tell you a lot of their clients are being bought. And so as their clients are acquired, they lose them. I think that's the reason for about half of the clients that we've lost over the last 4 years is due to them being acquired. Now, what we need to find, and we've done this in a few cases, is that we've hitched our wagon to the group doing the acquiring. So we're not a victim. I don't want to say we're not a victim, we're the predator. That's not what I want to say. But what I want to say is we get to, as they grow, we grow.
Sure.
So we're working on trying to do more of that. There's also needs to be a similar approach to process. So we're a process-driven company. And I think that's the only way you scale. I don't know how we would do it. And some people are really more oriented towards everything is customized for every client every time. And there's no standardization. And that is really hard to integrate. It's really hard. So we're careful about that. And we talk with folks about how we are and what they do. And I try to have those conversations now. It wasn't always this way, but my conversations begin more with our approach and their approach, and is all this aligned? Again, before we start talking about a P&L. And then it may mean we waste 2 meetings, but I made a new connection. They might not be the right fit right now, but at least I've gotten to know them and they may know somebody, or I may know somebody that would be a better fit for them.
Is there too big of a client of a MSP for you to buy? Like, are you looking? You said 3 million maybe is the low level. What do you have a ceiling?
Could we go to 20? Probably. Going to 30 million is also an opportunity. It becomes more of a discussion of a merger of equals. That's sort of a different scenario and challenging in its own way. I've seen those work. I've seen 3 things. I've seen those work, right? The owners have to be very flexible, right? Have no ego, and willing to make it work. I've seen it not work where it just didn't, it kind of fell apart at the last minute, or things aren't really working well, or they're really both going to get out of it and sell to somebody else. And I've seen people say it's working when they're not really doing it. Okay. If Mike, you had an MSP and I had an MSP and we said we merged, but all we really did was consolidated books once a month, we're not really merged, right? I could call you chairman and you could call me CEO, but you're doing your thing over here and I'm doing my thing over there. That's not what I'm trying to do. I think that can be successful, and to a larger acquisition, they might say, oh, this one's 10 million, this one's 10 million, 20 million, we'll pay more for it. Maybe. But they'd probably pay even more if it was 20 million and integrated. I believe that at some point, at least in our situation, somebody's going to do the integrating. And I'd rather do it now when we're in charge, when we're involved, when we can do it in a customized way and we can sort of figure it out, than stamping it out on the press when it's another, let's get this MSP integrated, right, with these larger groups. That's just not who we are. Let's do this because we have another one coming down the pipe in 2 months, and then 2 months after that, and 2 months after that. And I don't think our founders that we're or the owners that we're acquiring would be comfortable with that approach either. Each one is a little bit different. And we're sort of tweaking our approach too. As we get better, it's great. But it's also important that we tweak our approach in each one because that's important to the employees. So we do that to hold on to them.
Great stuff. Well, thank you for being here, Willis. I appreciate it. Where can, if somebody's interested in speaking with you and maybe having a meeting, how do they contact you?
It's Willis at CanteyTech.com. And Lord knows, I feel like the spammers have all got it already. So my cell phone number is 843-478-0394. I've gotten a lot of political asks today. And no matter how often I say unsubscribe, they just don't. So there you got it. Give me a call or shoot me an email. I'd love to talk to you.
Good deal. And I will make sure to put that in the description over on YouTube. Willis, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your very busy day to share with the MSP community. And for everyone watching, we thank you. Tune in every Monday on the Kaseya YouTube channel for another episode of M&A Unpacked. And if you're not yet a member of the M&A Concierge platform for MSPs, make sure to apply today. Amazing platform that is 100% free for both buyers and sellers. See you next time, everyone.
Thank you. Take care, Mike.